Government finances have come under increased pressure in recent years as tax revenue has been falling due to lower economic growth, but spending has been rising steadily, meaning government has had to borrow more money in order to meet its spending needs. The payment of salaries is one of the big expenditure items which has been rising steadily.
It is indeed a very difficult budget because the economy has not been growing for a long period of time. With no economic growth, you don't have any growth in your tax returns. As a result of that, the civil service remuneration bill has now increased to around 46% of government tax revenue. This is clearly untenable. As a result of that, government will have to address this problem. And the only way to address this problem is to announce that the civil service remuneration bill going forward will not grow at a rate faster than the inflation rate.
In his medium-term budget speech in October last year, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said government needs to make at least 150 billion rand in spending cuts. Professor Rousseau says linking salary increases to the inflation rate can go a long way to reducing the public sector wage bill without having to embark on retrenchments.
If it's limited to the rate of inflation in terms of growth, rather than the very rapid growth we've had in the past, it can give a saving of 30 or 40 billion rands, depending on how you cut the numbers and depending over which period you look at it.
The problem is public servants are used to receiving above inflation increases. With the new round of public sector wage talks set to begin in July this year, it seems unlikely that public sector unions would easily accept an inflation-linked increase. Professor Rousseau says it's in the workers' best interest to make sacrifices during the current tough economic environment.
We are in tough times. The South African economy has not been growing for a long period of time. It is really tough out in the market if you just see the number of private sector businesses going into retrenchments. It is tough out there. And the civil servants in South Africa had a pretty good deal during tough times in the economy, and it's necessary for the civil service in South Africa to make the same adjustments as what employees at other organizations have to do. As I've said, some other organizations busy with retrenchments. So please, we are in tough times, and all of us have to make adjustments, have to take joint responsibility for getting South Africa out of this period of economic difficulty.
The reduction of spending, especially the public sector wage bill, is seen as a crucial step that the Finance Minister must take in order to avert a downgrade to junk status by Moody's next month. Bongeni Moto, SABC News, Johannesburg. For more, I'm joined in studio by Cosatu Spokesperson Sizwe Pamla. Good afternoon, Mr. Pamla. Thank you for joining us. The budget is coming up next week. Everyone is expecting some serious cuts to be effected by the Finance Minister, and your members seem to be staring down the barrel this time around. How do you feel?
Well, we don't conduct our negotiations in Parliament, so the Minister cannot take decisions that are going to affect our members in Parliament without engaging us at the PSCPC. All we know is that all of our issues, wages, benefits and everything, we will negotiate them at the PSCPC. So we are also looking forward to the budget. We will be watching it very closely. But when it comes to issues of public service, we are clear that we only determine those at the chamber.
Now, all indications are that we are looking at an austerity budget next week. That much was clearly signaled by the Finance Minister in his medium-term budget speech last year in October. Austerity, as Cosatu, how do you feel about that?
Well, the interventions coming from National Treasury are more ideological in nature, really, because we don't need austerity now. We need policies that are going to grow the economy. For example, when they talk about austerity, they pretend as if this is something new. They haven't been filling vacancies in the public service since 2014. So funded vacancies, up to 270,000 of them, have not been filled in the public service since 2014. So we have been having austerity. That is why we have an economy where it is. If you think that you are going to impose austerity. Let's look at the numbers. In the retail sector, we're told that it has shrunk by 0.4% because households are struggling. Not only are people in debt, but they don't have any income to spend. So you are trying to grow the economy, and you are saying that you are going to impose austerity. How are you going to create domestic demand? Who's going to produce what? And who's going to buy with what? Because an economy needs to produce something. At the same time, it needs to pay decent enough wages for people to be able to afford those goods. So austerities will devastate township economy and rural economy, especially if they are targeted at public servants, because that is where most of the public servants are based, and their contribution to the township and rural economy cannot be overestimated.
Now, we've just seen the learned professor from VETS, the interim head of VETS Business School, Professor Yana Rosso, indicating clearly that if you as the workers were to accept an inflation-linked increase this time around, that could actually help to avert a situation where government has to reduce the headcount, cut more posts and so on. Is that something that you prepared to consider?
When it comes to wages, everything will be an outcome of negotiations. So we don't go into negotiations with conditions. We will negotiate everything. But on that point, if you look at what is being done here, public servants are being targeted. And this is not for the first time. Because around about 96, 97, when GIA was adopted, we were told the same thing, that we needed to pay the apartheid debt. And the people who were targeted were public servants. From 1.4 million public servants in 1994, if you include the TPVC states, the public service shrunk to 960,000. There was a lot of outsourcing. What was the argument of outsourcing? Was that it will be cheaper, it will be things will be more efficient. But what has happened since then? All you have to do is to watch the Zondo Commission to know that outsourcing has actually collapsed the state. The looting that has taken place as a result of outsourcing and public-private partnerships, no one is talking about that. We want to know, where are those service level agreements that were signed with the service providers? And what has happened? If we are serious about cutting cost, you cannot continue to allow the status quo to exist and persist, and then you target a public servant. Number two, the government, I was listening to the learned professor talking about 46% of the wage bill to the consolidated public spending, government spending. If you look at what that means, by Treasury's own definition, it means consolidated public spending doesn't just end with public servants. It's national departments, it's provincial ones, it's state entities, it's agencies, it's municipal transfers. Why are we targeting civil servants? At the same time, Tito Mboweni was delivering the mid-term budget policy statement, he gave 23 billion to ESCOM with no conditions. He didn't say that they have to cut their wages, they have to freeze their wages. Yet he's targeting the public service. So what we are arguing here is that when people talk about the 46%, it isn't actually the workers, the nurses and the teachers. It is everyone. It is workers here at SABC. It is workers at ESCOM, workers at SASA. For an example, if you were to impose this austerity to public servants, what we are saying is that workers in a policy department like social development should accept their wages being frozen. Yet an entity like SASA, whose policy department is social services, can continue to have fund. So what we are arguing here is that unless they come out with an honest proposal on how to restructure the state to reduce government spending, we will engage. Not when they are still presenting this ideological argument.
Lastly and briefly, because we're running out of time, any sacrifices that you as public sector unions are prepared to make, given the challenges that we're facing, mood is breathing down the country, you know the risks that the country is facing at the moment?
We are already seated at NETLEC with proposals. We have come out with a proposal to say these very same public servants, we are engaging with them, we've engaged with them to say, look, a portion of your pension should help to at least keep the lights on so that we can talk about how to grow the economy. So these public servants who are making a huge and a bold step now are being told that their wages are going to be targeted. It's not going to work like that. Public servants have already made clear that they can entertain this with conditions, but with wages, you don't touch their wages.
Mr. Pamla, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, after the break, we take a look at the Africa markets. Stay with us.